And we're live.
Hello everyone out there. Welcome to the Synth Society Summit. And I am one of the moderators, Travarsi, and I'm also one of the founders of SoCal Synth Society. And our other moderator and member of SoCal Synth Society, we have B-Boy Tech.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Good to and I don't found nothing. I just follow around and see what's going down.
Well, we first want to kick off the hour just as we said that we want to kind of talk about how we all got started, especially being from, we're all in different areas and this is a very niche society in general, and then having to find people that are into this and whether it's DIY building or playing live or Eurorack or 5U and synths and hardware. It's great to have this opportunity to connect with other people in our area. So we decided that we wanted to kind of do this thing since we aren't in this time able to really meet up in person. We thought, why not? And Corey and I were doing this interview online, and we were like, why don't we put together all the societies online? Like, it just makes the most sense. Like, this is a way we can get together. And so we were just like, shit, let's just make it happen.
Yeah, I thought it was a good idea. And I mean, we know so many great people, so many great synth enthusiasts and live performers. And it just seemed like the right thing to do since we're all sort of isolated and we don't want to forget community in this time. And since we ain't going to Super Booth, and that was kind of the plan that we would be leaving tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And so we kind of thought this is a good way to kind of keep that festivity and keep kind of injecting that love into the community. And let's just kind of learn about, there's all these different synth societies and outfits around the nation and around the world, really. We'll get a chance to explore that at some time. But we thought it was a dope idea to bring us all together and talk about the Synth Society and how it kind of came about for all of us. And for me personally, I met Shonda actually 1 year ago around this time of year at Synthplex, which has also been postponed. And since then, we've become fast friends. And, I love being a part of the Synth Society and bringing together this idea of for myself, hip and synthesis and stuff. So I just love being a part of this, and I'm all about community, and I'm just glad we're doing it this way. So welcome to the weekend, you guys. I'm so happy that you all are partaking.
Yes,
thank you.
Welcome. And I want to give everyone a round of applause, seriously, to like contributing and everyone's working together. So I guess let's get it started. Let's go from coast to coast. So let's start on the East Coast. I'm going to mute my mic and then let you guys kind of take here and just give us a brief intro of how you started your group and what you guys have been up to right now.
So I guess I'll start talking. Nobody's talking. It all started, John. So I don't know, on my screen is like, right there. JB and YMS started the Reddit thread in the summer, maybe something like July or
yeah, it was
something.
August.
And he stated something that we were thinking, why is there no modular clubs, anything, in New York? Maybe the biggest city in the world, and nothing is going on. So we were kind of like, a little surprised and all, looking for something. So I guess, we figured we could do it on our own. And, John was stating, the way he was envisioning it, something very open that we all agreed on. We joined forces with Jason, and that was pretty much the start of it.
Yeah, we were all pretty surprised that there was no sort of community aspect, considering it was New York. There was no community to sort of bond and band together electronic musicians, and specifically for us, it's modular synthesizers that we're all excited about. So we just made it a point to bring ourselves together and really put an emphasis on the community aspect. And I think what's been so surprising to all of us is that as we've grown and grown since just August of last year, we get so many folks from New York coming in and saying, I can't believe this didn't exist already. I can't believe this wasn't a thing already. Why hadn't Control done this already? Just, you know, a store in our town. So it's just been a really, really exciting, life affirming experience putting this together. Jason, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I completely echo both of your sentiments. For me, every modular event that I had been to, almost every modular event, has usually been centered around gear or manufacturers. There occasionally might be a show here and there, like a random show, or maybe there's someone playing modular at a show, but there weren't any live music events dedicated to modular synthesis. So for me, that was one of the huge draws and opportunities, especially here in New York. I mean, there's so many people. The only person to date over the past like 10, 15 years that's gotten anyone together in the modular community has been Scooter McCrae. And I got to give that guy props because he's amazing and has an incredible mod can system at his home. But I mean, it's fantastic. So, but that's like through Muff Wiggler, you know, and that was about it. It's a hangout at Scooter's house, and we drink, we patch, we do whatever. This is a little different, where we're actually organizing events and building community and really trying to support each other in a open and caring environment, you know?
Yeah, part of it, I agree, obviously, with everything Jason and John said. Part of it also was we didn't feel, you know, we really belonged to anything that was already existing. You know, I'm not going to discuss it, but, you know, Muff Wiggler, all that, we didn't feel exactly represented by it. We're very open type of people. We were really trying to, you know, make something happen that really represents New York, meaning, you know, all types of music, but also the New York, you know, mentality a little bit, being very open about stuff. So I'm speak for myself, but I was aware of like modular on the spot. But as soon as I read about it, I felt I was excluded from it because my setup is based off an MPC. And I was like, okay, so this is not for me. So, you know, I didn't feel Muff Wiggler was exactly for me neither, you know. So I was like, what, you know, that sucks, right? So I got very excited when John kicked things up, you know, and I met Jason through Scooter McRae. We can't say his name enough, you know. He's really
it's just a fun name to
big,
say.
you know, big player in the modular scene in New York. So yeah, that was you know, not only there was not exactly what we're looking for, but the things that were there would not exactly match what we wanted to do.
And that's admirable in general, because you know, with something like this, it's a niche market and it's something that we're all very passionate about. And I can imagine being in a city like New York and looking around like, hey, why isn't there something like this already? So
Exactly.
to y'all for creating this, and it's dope because I see the stuff that you're doing even from all the way from across the country. So good stuff. And who else is there? Whose nest is this? North Sea? Is that North Carolina?
Yep, North Carolina's up next.
Okay.
No. North Coast, which is Michigan.
Oh, North Coast. That's right. North.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, up north.
I'm from Chicago.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, Chicago's up here in the North Coast.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's a sort of a northern Midwestern insider joke that you know, you've got the East and the West Coast, and then because of the Great Lakes, we've got the North Coast. So that's what that's all about. Also somewhat of a fun play on the different types of synthesis as well. But yeah, how did we get started? So it sort of started as like this reunion between a small handful of people who used to do a lot of music in the Detroit area back in the late 90s and 90s and into the early 2000s. But then a lot of us had like the family, grad school, this, that, or whatever that got in our way. And for like almost 10 years, all of us kind of just went completely cold from the music scene. And then came back, and it was a bit of a like, wow, there's a lot of stuff that's different now. What's going on? This is cool. And there's some neat things happening. And so like me and one of my friends, Jason, who did a lot of music together, just got back together, and we found that we could do coffee in the mornings really early before work. And we'd play at the coffee shop and play with whatever kind of, stuff we had. And eventually we realized that we just like talking a lot as well. And we'd bring people in. Like one time we had Bill come out for some, to jam with us and everything. And we realized that there was a big component, a social component to this whole thing about like, we just like talking about the gear and the community and the music itself and everything. And so we just kept on talking, and we decided, well, let's just do that for a while. Let's try that, And so we did these like, at first we just called them, what was it, like the socio-technical geekathons or something, or no,
Yeah.
the electrosonic geekathons, something, some crazy name. And we were meeting up at coffee shops and stuff, and slowly the group kept growing. And then one time Bill was like, hey, should we have this summer camp thing? This was like, what, 3-4 years ago now, Bill?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And so we invaded his house for a week and made up some synths and did all kinds of crazy stuff. But so along the way, it went from just like a handful of like, half a dozen or more people who are just kind of enthusiastic about stuff. We found that we're tinkerers, we're makers. We like, coding. There's a bunch of educators in our group as well. And we have people who do software, all kinds of stuff. And so we ended up really quickly realizing that we weren't just into the music, we were also into the community, helping people learn how to do the stuff, and also just tinkering around with stuff and learning and making things as well. And so we're kind of this big amalgam of all of that right now, where we make some stuff in order to make things we try to make them so that people can learn from them. So they're like modules that are easy to learn from, that there is a low bar entry kind of thing, but by no means are we a module manufacturer. We're nonprofit oriented, so we're terrible capitalists. We don't make any money, and it's all about trying to get people into this thing and trying to get them to learn. That's our big mission on that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, we had I know you guys had that little module. One of the things that you're speaking of, because Sean was actually here and we joined you on your build.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So our group, North Coast Modular Collective, the sort of 3-part mission statement for us is music, instruments, and community. And those 3 things are really tied together, so we're all active musicians, whether it's just making stuff for ourselves or making music and performing for other people and releasing stuff. Like Joe mentioned, we're definitely well into designing instruments, whether that's software or hardware. And then the third part is all about community, of course. And so, like Joe kind of alluded to, we did our first public meetup. I want to say, was it fall of 2017, or was it a little later than that, Joe?
Yeah, it was somewhere around there.
Yeah. And that really just started like, I have a space. Let's invite some folks that we know and see who might be interested in showing up. And I think that first event had like 20 people. And we've tried to do pretty regular meetups every couple of months, taking a lot of inspiration from the Rocky Mountain Synthesizer meetup. So there've been a couple of touch points for us. Darwin Gross's podcast has been one of those, and like getting to hear the interview that he did with the founder of the Rocky Mountain Synth meetup was a big influence in kind of shaping how we thought we might want our group to go, and in how we do meetups and some of the things that we do, some of the routines that we do. So we do public meetups every couple of months, and then we've been working for the last year or so with what we call the core organizers, of which Joe and Nick and I are part of that, in using those sort of off months to plan things for the community and work on developing modules and things like that.
That's nice. And so are you finding that with these venues that people are pretty open to opening their doors and things like that for you guys, like to host these events?
Yeah, whenever there's not a pandemic, there's always been like, actually, it's kind of turned into like it's hard for us to get to all of them because there's so many inviting us to use to do something with them. So it's really a nice, great problem to have. But it shows how like the community really engages with us, and it's and for us, the community is not just southeastern Michigan, but it's any area that touches the Great Lakes. So we've been out to Chicago and all over the place, and hoping to grow, even more regionally, and get things going. One of the things I grabbed one of the panels. I don't know if you can quite see that, but there's all these wiggly lines on our designs. It's because we love this sense of space. We really dove into it. And those wiggly lines are actually the topographical maps lines. For the whatever module we've named it. Like this one's the Ann Arbor percussion synthesizer. So that's like Ann Arbor. And behind me, you can kind of see there's like some other ones here where you can actually see in there, like, hey, there's a river going through the module. So we really like try and have that sense of community that has a sense of place as well. And we aesthetically try to pull that in, as well.
Yep.
That's nice. So now are those some of the modules that you're going to do for your builds? That's like, for example, the Ann Arbor module, that's one of the.
So right now, when we first started off, we didn't really have the sort of like the guiding mission, it didn't come to us from the very beginning. We kind of landed into it, and we started off actually kind of going off onto like all these crazy things that we thought, wow, this would be fun to do. And that's shiny, that's fun over there. And hey, these teensy machines, and then we can do stuff with Raspberry Pis and all that kind of stuff. And we went all over the place, and we got some like really complex things and some half finished stuff. And then we realized, wait, what we've been really doing well with is teaching people, and it's not these complex things that teach them. It's like the really simple oscillator, or the mult, or this or that, to get you started going on that. So for example, I think Corey, you held up like there's a little simple oscillator. It's just a tiny little box, and it was literally like the fewest number of pieces you can put together to make a wave come together, and without using some sort of integrated chip. And we went that route because we wanted to like actually show people like, here's how it happens, not just there's this black box kind of thing. So that's one of the kinds of build along events that we do, and usually we do these as like in-person workshops, but we've been trying these out as kind of on streaming live ones, since we can't do them live in person right now. We're probably going to do another one with the OR switch, which is one of the more recent modules that we've got. I don't know, do you have one handy, Bill? There it is. This is a really
That's
cool.
the one you're doing with Afro Rack?
Yeah, it's a collab with Ali, the architect, and Afro Rack. And yeah, this has been a lot of fun. And that's another one that's really great as a teaching device as well, because it not only from the soldering and the assembly kind of perspective, but also in just the perspective of like synthesis teaching as well. Teaching about like, here are the gates and the triggers and how you can combine them and use logic and switch between them to make something that's simple, combine some simple things to make them more complex. So you can teach all those kinds of electrical engineering basics, DIY basics,
Nice.
synthesis basics. That's all that we try to wrap all that up together in one.
Yep.
Nice. Well, cool. It's that all came together, and it seems that everybody has a little bit different sort of reason why they came together, and kind of what kind of keeps everybody motivated and keeps everybody moving. Who's next on do we want to go to Houston or Colorado next?
I mean, if we're sweeping the coast, man, I think that's me.
Yep, Houston's up.
I just washed the barbecue sauce off my fingers, bro. I'm ready. Hey, man.
H-Town right here.
Thank everybody so much for being here, and all the work that's behind this. Super excited to be here. Maybe it's just the human interaction. I don't know. Modular Houston, really, I got to give credit to Greg Is and Jesse Farmer. Back in April 2018, they put a little synth get together, and like it was at one of our old modular buddies' real estate offices. So it was cool, but there wasn't like a bartender or like a sound system or anything like that. So it was real like bootstrap kind of thing, but it was cool. But all it took was for us to get together and kind of start working together. And from there, it's kind of blossomed into this thing that's real kind of petting zoo centric, where our main focus is getting everyone together, letting everyone engage and ask questions and play with gear and kind of patch into each other and be like, hey, put your clock in. Let's just kind of go all the way down in daisy chain. And I really want to use my time to share some resources and some actions that we did that really gave us some traction, because since then, we've put some polls out on social media and really kind of gauged what our people want. And we've been able to kind of develop into like putting shows on and doing builds and workshops and having people sponsor where we showcase them or their gear, that kind of thing. So first off, the social media polls were huge for us. Just kind of hearing what our people want, like, hey, we've been having a lot of shows lately. Are y'all cool with that? Do y'all like the venues? Do y'all want more hands-on stuff? So on Facebook and Instagram. To be honest, I tried to get off Facebook, but it's really good for events and a lot of people use it. And like, I don't know, man, I really only use it for the modular stuff, but it is very effective. And then on Instagram, if you guys have Eventbrite, it's very, very effective for us to have Eventbrite linked. There's a little button that you can put the get tickets button right there in your Instagram. And then of course it sends, you build your email list. And from there you can just, you can just keep working them from there. One website that was massive for us was indieonthemove.com. Like the modular scene's real weird because there's a lot of like, I mean, I can only speak for us. Like there's a lot of more weirdos in like New York and California and like Seattle and stuff like that. But like out here, there's like rock bars and, blues bars and that kind of stuff. So indieonthemove.com, you can actually search by music type. You can search by like capacity. Like we're pulling like, depending on the event, like if it's a build, maybe 10 people. If it's a show, 50 to 70 people, maybe 30 people. If it's a meetup, probably 30, 35 people, something like that. So you can really kind of hone in and find spots that are good for you, that are like real accommodating and welcoming to having you. Like we just use our strength in numbers. We're like, look, we're not going to charge at the door. All of our events are always free. That's kind of been our thing. Like all of our things are always going to be free. We're not going to charge at the door, but what we're going to do is we're going to show up and we're going to drink beer and we're going to buy food. So that's kind of been our thing. And really there's only been one time that we charged $10 at the door for a show. It was a super dope venue. They had sound. They had an awesome projection system that went like wall to wall to wall. We charged $10 and we had a rum sponsor and a beer sponsor. So everybody got free drinks and like t-shirts and stuff like that. So it's like, we're always around free stuff and getting people just kind of together touching gear. So really that's it. If y'all have questions, I'm totally down, but I'm sure I'll have plenty more to share.
I like it.
Yeah.
It's a good philosophy. It seems like every group, as they share, it's the online thing is community, helping each other, and just coming together. I love it.
Well, through getting everyone together, we found a bunch of monsters that we had like no idea that had been in hiding. So it was like really good to be able to showcase them and kind of get them plugged in.
Right. They've been in their bedrooms or their studios with all their gear, and now they have an opportunity to get
or just far. Yes. They're like an hour away or something like that, and they're like, man, I miss y'all, would love to come to y'all, but it's like we finally like got close enough or just sweetened the pot enough for them to finally come out. But I love y'all. Hope to see y'all all soon.
Yeah, no doubt. And I appreciate you telling your story, and that is kind of the running theme, community and stuff. And I can testament to that from a SoCal Synth Society thing. We live not necessarily really far, but not necessarily close. And the little get-togethers that we've done have created that kind of sense of community, just like you're talking about. So yeah, I can appreciate that, man.
I do have a question for you. I want to actually maybe even circle back before we get too far, down through the line, or just we can come back to it. But when you say like, I know the fact that I've been to Houston. It's spread out, you know, compared to some other areas. Like how is that with your members? So you said, for example, you have a member an hour away. Do you have that, like, do you feel like a lot of your members are just kind of all over the place, and then you guys
We are all over the place. Like, it's crazy. And that all goes back to the social media polls that I was talking about. You just put it out there, hey, like Northeast, Southwest, and then like from there you can kind of like break it down, and you kind of have your database of bars and like galleries and stuff that want to work with you, so you can kind of like connect the dots that way. But just hearing from your people, and you kind of hear your audience. One thing I always try to do is like each meetup, every performance, I try to do it on different sides of town.
Okay.
And you kind of feel like, all right, this spot's not really working, or like down there, it's, you know, it's too far, like, you know, you get feedback. But Indie on the Move is tremendously helpful, and just doing those polls on social media, that'll do it for you every time.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing that same kind of effect of people, like once they hear about it and know that it's happening, really kind of flocking to it. I mean, Nick, I think you can probably speak to some of the social media stuff that we've been doing to help kind of pull people in. You've been really involved with that. I think you're muted right now, Nick.
There we go. Okay. I guess let me rewind a little bit. We were like one of our meetups, we were talking to people after we had the presentations and stuff like that. And, you know, we're finding out that, you know, we've got somebody drove up from Indiana, somebody drove down from Traverse City. I mean, these are like multi-hour drives, and the people are just so passionate about the subject that I can see Chris in the chat on YouTube here. You know, people are so passionate about finding other people to chat about modular, and regardless, every time, you know, I learn something new. And I think that goes for everybody that attends one of these types of events. But for us, kind of one of the interesting areas was to find something to kind of glue those relationships between events. I mean, we only have events every quarter or so. And so that's a lot of time in between. So we've done a lot with, we use a forum called Discourse, which has been just super awesome for kind of fostering those relationships in between those in-person events, or in between, I guess now, those virtual events. But I highly recommend checking it out. It's worth the time and investment in that type of technology.
I have a question. You can say no, maybe if you want to do it after everyone goes, if you don't want to get off too track, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned that you do events every like once a quarter or so. Is that a time availability thing, or is that a supply and demand kind of thing?
It's
mostly a time availability.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, yeah, it is one of those things where when we looked at our own schedules, and when I say we, I mean the core organizers, like the
Sure.
sort of core group of people that are kind of organizing events and doing that stuff. I think if we tried to do a monthly thing as a public event, I think we'd find ourselves burned out. And one of our goals is really to be sustainable, like to have this be something that can keep going. And
Sure.
and so that like once every 2 to 3 months schedule is kind of a big part of that, of making it sustainable for us. Because then on those off months when we're not doing a public thing, again, before the pandemic, you know, we were getting together individually, whether it's to do an artist retreat like we did in February, whether it's to just do like a tinkering session, trying to figure out some module designs for new things, that kind of thing.
I like it. It leaves room for other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, Colorado, David.
What's up? Hey, everybody.
Get all the. All right.
Thank you so much for putting this on real quick. Yeah, so Colorado Modular Synth Society, we're going into our 3rd year now. Kind of similar story. We started off small. I mean, what can I say? Like I got like a little studio. I put it out there on a Facebook group that's John Mosher started up a long time ago, and said, you guys want to get together? Somebody else like was building, had something to build. So we tried building. That was like 5 people. And I just did it every month. And then by, into spring of next year, we were getting like 20, 30 people. And then we just kept on doing it every month and every month. And then eventually we got so many people that we actually had to move over to WMD's warehouse space. And then last year we did a festival. We did the Colorado Modular Synth Festival. And that was a free event. And we had over 300 some people show up to that thing. And so yeah, it just kept on, you know, just growing and growing and getting bigger and bigger. And it's been, you know, pretty amazing experience for me personally. I started to do the event stuff for the group, and ended up developing the website and putting up the Instagram and doing all this other stuff, that the newsletter and you know, the festival and all that stuff, and I had a lot of help with a lot of the members. All the members would always volunteer and stuff. But it was pretty amazing because I started to get into it because I didn't know anything about synthesis really. I had had a keyboard. I've had a drum machine. I've even had Ableton at one point, but I didn't know shit about it, right? I just wanted to learn, and I wanted to learn more about modular. And I was reaching out to this group, and I was just so surprised how open everybody was, and I just wanted to keep that going, because I found that out of all the music genres I've ever been in, this genre, like, or this like scene was so open and so you know, flowing, and there's no ego or anything like that. And I think a lot of that's because everybody has done something else, and then they get to this point and they don't want any of that bullshit. So I just thought, well, let's just keep going. And I felt that when I start talking to people about putting together these meetups and stuff, people really wanted to come together. And, you know, I think Spencer, you mentioned the monsters and stuff like that. All these folks that had been into it and thought they were alone is what I wanted to, like, you know, stop happening. I don't want anybody to feel alone when you're learning this stuff, because when you're doing modular, especially, you know, in 2017, you were like, I don't know anybody else who's doing this. Everybody's doing it. It's in Europe. All the stores are like, you know, in California or New York, and we don't have anything like that here. So you just feel like you're really just trying to figure this stuff out on your own and just scratching your head half the time. So by putting everybody together, you know, we really like helped people not feel alone in doing this music. And I think that's probably on a deeper level, and probably another discussion about like musicianship and modular and the people who gravitate towards it. But yeah, so it's been wild, and you know, we keep growing and growing, and it's kind of I have some similar things with everybody what they've been talking about, because we keep having people from around the region also come here. So we have a lot of folks from you know, New Mexico, Wyoming, Kansas, because there's nothing else going on around there. They'll come over to check out what we're doing, or they'll join our group, and that's been really amazing to kind of really just branch out from just not Denver, but also the surrounding areas.
It's very cool. All right, so we have San Francisco too. Let's hear from San Francisco. I know you guys have, from what I've heard, you guys have been around for a little while now.
Yes, that's right. Hi guys, my name is Rich DDT. I'm here representing Love Tech, based in San Francisco, and Evan is here as well, another talented partner of Love Tech. So yeah, we, I'll say off the bat, we're not exclusively focused on modular. We are focused on electronic music innovation. And we have been around for a long time. Quick history, Moldover from New York and Boston back in late 1990s. It was when he was really getting deep into controllerism. And it was basically not until I met Moldover at Burning Man in 2007 that we started brainstorming about what it would be to create a new scene in San Francisco. At that point in 2007, there were already very active parties in New York. The Warper Party, I don't know if you guys heard about them. They're talking about omni-digital musicians and interactive artists. So from the seeds of Warper, Moldover and I and Craig Doherty collaborated to create a new scene in San Francisco that was focused on mostly controllerism, live electronic music performance, and new ways of creating instruments and interactive art. So yeah, we launched our first event in January 2009, and since then, it's grown and evolved in a lot of different ways. I heard people mention about the challenge of throwing a monthly party. And it certainly, well, we were doing monthly for probably the first 9, well, I'd say the first 7 to 8 years, before around 8 years and we switched to fewer events. And it's really been amazing seeing the community grow, because being focused on innovation and expression, we've been able to adapt with changes in technology, seen scenes come and go, and been able to feature the most exciting, currently relevant aspects of the different scenes. So at the core, I'd say there's lots of makers, tinkers, coders, and educators, and people that are interested not just in putting on a really cool stage show for live electronic music expression, but also designing custom instruments in order to make that show really stand out and to harness their unique ability to express themselves musically. So we're talking about people coming up with unique instruments that solve that niche that didn't exist in existing hardware, which is a great crossover with the modular scene and all the custom instrument designs. And also from the sound design world, there's people that have been doing lots of interesting Foley and coming up with unique sounds to try to stand out from the crowd of what in like 2009, 2010 was highly saturated with DJs. A lot of the movement also, as electronic music was rising, wanted to differentiate musicianship and live performance from straight up DJing so that there was a more engaging live show. And including myself, like I designed this one here. You can see this well. This one's called the Controlatar. And
that's so cool.
I mean, it's a wearable, keytar-like instruments, but it's basically just hacked existing controllers, and it's definitely super fun to play. But we have a wide range of skills where you take an existing controller or a synthesizer and you work within the parameters, or you have taking pieces of different ones, Frankensteining them together and coming to custom, or you design something completely from scratch where you have custom face plates, custom sensors. And if you look at Moldover's catalog, you'll see many different custom instruments that have been designed there. And we're also not exclusive to synthesizers versus software. So, you see the full gamut of a lot of people using Ableton, people using Max and Bitwig, to people designing custom synths. And our buddy Evan here, he has been an active part recently. We've gone down to maybe about 2 regular fully produced events in-house, while the rest of the year our model has evolved to having our featured either interactive art zone or stage lineup at other existing events, conferences and festivals and things. But yeah, well, one thing that I'll say that we always visioned in terms of bringing a community together through events was to make it very open, accessible, to really educate people. So you see something really awesome happen on stage and you're like, oh, how do I do that? And then you can hop into the digital jam lounge and play with interactive art installations, which include jam boxes, multiplayer music instruments, where you can instantly jam with your friends using similar technology that synchronizes the sound of you and your friends. And then we also did Learn Tech, which is a series of play shops that covered everything from circuit bending to some basic modular synth design. And yeah, so Evan joined in on one of Moldover's new album premieres. You want to tell us a little bit about your involvement, Evan?
I was learning. I'd always really been interested in making electronic music, but I had always wanted to get into music, period. Wanting to do band in elementary school. But I'm a person, I have some visual and learning disabilities. So for me, the traditional route through music of sheet reading and memorizing and that kind of thing just was not gonna happen. So for a long time, I had just written off music as an option for me. But then I had a friend who was like a trap DJ in college, and he was like, "Oh, I have this like extra CD with like Ableton Live Lite. Like I got it with this audio interface. Like I don't need it. Like I use FL Studio. Blah blah blah. Like here, like I see you trying to make music on these like ancient apps. Like here, just take this." And so I started getting into Ableton, and I was like, once I loaded that up, I was like, well, okay, yeah, this is where it's happening. And that kind of gave me a framework, you know, to handle a lot of the memorization tasks that I wasn't able to do with the traditional instrument. And so I got into like making stuff in Ableton, and I started seeing stuff by Matt Moldover, they call him the godfather of controllerism. For people who aren't like familiar with that term, it kind of comes from like turntablism, except instead of using like vinyl records and scratching and making a performance from that, it's more like, okay, how can I like rig together a bunch of different like USB MIDI devices, which they are sometimes reliable and sometimes not. Like Rich was showing with this instrument, there are a lot of like cannibalized like USB 1.0, USB 2.0, different peripherals that we all kind of slammed together into one rig. And so I was watching some of Matt Moldover's videos like online, and I was thinking to myself, oh man, this stuff is so cool. But like the folks who was talking earlier from the Colorado Modular Synth Society, like there was definitely a feeling of like, oh, well, like I'm never going to meet these people. Like I'm going to try and learn as much as I can online, but like I'm on my own and like I got to figure this out. So I was like doing that and kind of feeling alone, like a basement dweller, like many, I think, synth people feel like. But then I came back to the Bay Area where I'm from, and it was like crazy because I met Rich at a talk at Pyramind that Mr. Bill was doing. And before Mr. Bill talked, there was a visual VJ guy, and he just like randomly called like Rich out of the crowd. He was like, that guy knows what he's talking about. Like he's the person, like if something's wrong in your setup, like call him, like he knows what's up, like he'll figure it out. And so I like after that, I was like, okay, I gotta like after the show, I gotta talk to this guy. And he started inviting me to like his jam sessions in his basement in San Francisco. And it was just like all kinds of everything that could be like MIDI synced was there. From like old Korg Electribe stuff to people's like Ableton setups, and so that really got me hooked. And what also happened at the same time was that was like exactly when Ableton Link came out, which was like all of a sudden like everybody's like independent, completely separate like laptop rigs. Okay, now we can like have everybody beat synced and like be able to change the tempo and have everybody stay with it. And that really like bridged the gap like between everybody's like separate Ableton worlds. Because like with modular, I feel like it's all running on like CV or like audio. So it's, I mean, you got to, learn how to patch into somebody else's whole rig, but it's the same like sync protocol. Whereas with Ableton for a long time, like you could kind of get it to MIDI sync, but it was really iffy because everybody's kind of rig was different and everybody was using different like MIDI interfaces and stuff. So it was all kind of a crapshoot. But yeah, once Ableton Link opened up, it was like, okay, now like all the Ableton rigs can play together. So that's how I started getting into like Love Tech, and the whole like controllerism scene was just like first YouTube videos. Like cannot understate how important like YouTube tutorials are. And then once I got into the scene, it was like all these people who I thought I was never going to meet and who are kind of like my heroes in learning Ableton. It was like, oh yeah, I met them and they invited me to their birthday or whatever. Like there's these meetups and events and stuff. And then Rich started, inviting me to bring out these exhibits. And that's a big part of what Love Tech does is we have like this kind of network of people who make these like installations that are really good for like parties and stuff. For example, we have it's like there's so many names for it, I'm losing track, but
Oscillation Station.
Yes, the Oscillation Station. And it's actually very straightforward in terms of like what it is hardware wise. It's just like a really old laptop that's dying, a MIDI Fighter 3D and old vintage oscilloscope. And so what we've done is we worked with Jero Beam Fenderson, who's into like oscilloscope, basically sounds that look cool on an oscilloscope. He did a whole album where you can play it through an oscilloscope. And so you hit the pads like on the MIDI Fighter, and that like plays the sounds straight into the oscilloscope, and then you can hear it too. And so like that would be like an example of the kind of like exhibits we make, and we bring them to like talks and parties and all kinds of different stuff. And that's kind of been our scene, has been like bringing together all these different exhibits that we've built, and then also the community, the Love Tech community has built. And it's a good way to like bring it out to people who like, you know, maybe have never done any electronic music at all. And
Let me
yeah,
ask you,
so
speaking
anyway,
of the MIDI fighter and that, and I
Mhm.
know that Ian Golden is living in your, is he happen to be ever get involved with you guys? Like just being that he is a controllerist himself, and he's been, you know, long before DJ Tech Tools, like he's been, you know, using, you know, like game consoles and things to like for controllerism. So
Oh yeah.
curious, because I know he's lives in your area.
Yeah, Ian and Moldova in particular go way back, and Ian wrote up an article about Moldova that was like the launch of around the launch of the term controllerism back in the, you know, like 2007-ish, 2006, I think. But the collaboration has been mostly a couple like videos that we worked on together. Ian sponsored the couple MIDI fighters for the Oscillation Station, and yeah, we have like basically published works being interviewed for DJ Tech Tools or otherwise. You know, there's been a friendly relationship overall, and it's great. I mean, there's like the arcade style aspects, which a lot of these instruments do feature arcade, you know, really durable buttons from arcades. But we're also excited about really unique types of expression too, ones that capture gestural control, ones that capture like laser break beam situations, custom sensors, RFID, capacitive touch, and also getting visual aspects to it. That's one thing that's nice about visual. That's one thing that's nice about modular. You can set it up in a way where you can visually see a lot about the signal flow within the instrument. Henry Strange from LA has done some great stuff with that as well.
You know what I think is dope is that one thing we should call out before we're going to go to Seattle next, but the thing we should call out is that these are synth societies, and that's not only Eurorack, right? So you know, for all the people that are out there that might be watching and be like, oh, I might want to join a Synth Society or start a Synth Society. You don't necessarily have to be on the Eurorack to do that. I mean, this is synthesis. I mean, even into video synthesis and stuff. I mean, standard architecture synthesizers as well. And so, you know, just kind of keep that in mind. Although a lot of us are into Eurorack, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be. And plus, it's a rabbit hole that you should.
That's a great point, Corey. Modular is at the heart for us, and it's in our name, but it's certainly not everything to us. It's what banded us together originally, but now I think we run the gamut of video to software to, you know, proper synths, normal instruments, right? We have drummers, we have guitarists, and we really span every type of performance art you can in New York. So, which is, you know, a lot.
We got real lucky out here because we already have a. Somebody already mentioned the Rocky Mountain Synth Meetup. So we already have like a group of people doing synthesizers in Ableton and all that other stuff. There's even a Max group out here. So there was already all that space. Nobody was doing modular. So we were able just to kind of just niche out with just modular, which just takes up plenty of time. But we were just lucky in that situation that we already had that foundation surrounding it.
Yeah. I had actually just this morning, I had a friend of mine reach out to me who like I knew from being like a summer camp counselor, and she, I think, you know, her background is mostly in like being like a singer songwriter, but she reached out to me and she was like, I want to get into sound design, but you know, I've been watching tutorials and like most of the tutorials are for these rigs that are like 4K plus, you know, to, you know, get started. And I wrote her a message. I was like, oh, I'm in Zoom calls all day today, but I want to like think about a good answer for you and how to get into sound design. And like kind of my stock answer that I've used for a long time is like a launch pad is like $99 and it comes with Ableton Lite.
There you go. And I mean,
You
there's
know?
and all kinds of stuff out there now. And before we get too on, though, I want to get Seattle in there.
For sure.
Seattle, you guys are up next. How kind of your origin story, how you got together and that sort of thing.
Thanks. First of all, I want to say thanks for organizing this. This is amazing to see.
Thanks for
all the
partaking.
faces.
Yeah, no doubt.
Awesome.
Everybody.
Yeah, so I'm Bradley, and I'm here with Josh and Justin from Seattle as well. I'll kick it off with the origin story and then toss it to them for their perspectives. I have a lot of parallels with Colorado's story, actually. A lot of that resonated with me in that I was just getting into modular in 2016, and I got introduced through a buddy of mine in SoCal, Joe Caputo. He ran Voltage Control Lab. He was doing videos for a while, and he was kind of getting me into this. And he also introduced me to modular on the spot as a thing that was happening on the LA River. And I thought, like, wow, that's so amazing. I wish there was something like that in my town. And similarly to, I think, what Colorado's story was, like, I didn't know anybody that was doing this kind of stuff in my town. And so I felt like I really wanted to just get connected to people and make some friends. So that was my initial motivation. And I reached out to Ben and Eric to see if they would mind if I use the modular on the spot name in Seattle and try to replicate that format. And they said, go for it. And so I started, like, I didn't know anybody, but I put something out on Facebook and met like my first 8 people, that some of which came up from Portland. And we did a generator show at Gasworks, which is a really amazing park in Seattle with like just these gorgeous views of like Lake Union and the city in the background. And so it was just like kind of a magical happening. And that was in July of 2016. And we've kind of been doing this and growing it ever since. I did modular on the spot for a little while, and then about a year later, I met Josh, who was also interested in doing modular on the spot, and we just got connected through kind of mutual acquaintances through Patchworks, the local synth store. And they said, you know, hey, you know, Brad's doing this. You want to do it? Maybe you guys should talk to each other. And we had like a half an hour over a beer, and we were immediately convinced we should just do this together. So we did a few more modular on the spots, and then also similar to Colorado's story, our community as it was growing started to want to push beyond just that strict modular only format, and so they were asking, like, could you guys do some events that allow for more? And so we started up a different format, which we call modular nights, which we started off in like an art gallery in Soto, which is like South Seattle, through a friend of ours, Molly, who was running that, and she kind of made her space available to us to do these different style events where they weren't outside running on a generator in the park, but they're indoors, and we would get visualists to come, and we would allow for any kind of hardware-based synthesizer or even software, but most people were using hardware, and that format really started to take off. At some point, Moquito, which was the art space we were in, hung it up, I guess, for lack of a better word. I think their lease was up or something. And so we were looking for a new home, and a mutual acquaintance through Recovery Effects, Greg Markle, had an association to a local venue substation, and the owner of that venue said, hey, why aren't you doing these at my place? And so he gave us a monthly, I think we had a trial for 3 months where we had a monthly slot for 3 months, and they wanted to see how it would go. And it went really well. We got like 7,500 people showing up first shows. And so they just said, here, take one Saturday out of every month to do these. So that's how Modular Nights was born, and we're still doing those monthly. Somewhere along the way, met Justin. Justin, I think Josh and I both met him at Patchwork Synth Meetup. He introduced himself as like, hey, I'm into live streaming. And at the time, I think Josh and I were live streaming with our phones and really kind of frustrated with the quality of that. And so this was like a great opportunity to learn how to do it for real. And Justin brought all that knowledge, like how to actually do a little bit better production online. So yeah, now we're streaming. We stream all our shows. Justin's pivotal in that. He also set up our Discord server, which is where our community chats and talks offline. And obviously during this COVID stuff, we're pivoting like everyone else to do more online. So we've been doing some Twitch stuff.
The worldwide pivot.
Yeah, it's been an amazing thing. And then I can't neglect to mention the one big flagship event we did last year, which was somewhere along the way, Substation was pretty happy with what we were doing monthly, and they said, hey, maybe you'd like to do something that takes over our whole venue. They have 3 different rooms, and
wow.
So I don't think they were willing to give us a whole weekend, but they said, here, take one day and just take over the place. And that was like in January of last year, and that kind of just became this behemoth that we didn't even anticipate, which was Velocity. And we started thinking about like, well, what can we do with these 3 rooms? And it just snowballed from there. We started reaching out to more like regional acts and trying to pull the greater community together. So that was an amazing thing that we hope to do again. Obviously COVID got in the way, but yeah, so that's been like a very abbreviated history of the stuff that we've done and how we've grown. We know like over 200 artists here locally.
Wow, that's huge.
So we've got a great rotation going. And then the other thing I got to say is like our community has really spun off into a bunch of other really amazing communities in their own right. So while we kind of still like to think of ourselves as a hub for all that, like, you've got Tim Hill doing the modular modcast. You've got Ellison doing waveform.
Modular modcast.
Yeah, we've got Untitled Beat Collective, a bunch of modular dance collective spinning off and doing their own thing. There's Technological Taxidermy in Spokane. They just changed it. I think their name is Technologic Synth Culture now. And so we road trip back and forth to Spokane occasionally to like cross-pollinate. Yeah, and so Modular Seattle as a name was really kind of born out of, I think when we decided, first of all, that we weren't just modular on the spot, we needed some name that encapsulated modular nights and other things. And then we also, with Velocity, realized we should probably set up something a little more formal. And so that's why we kind of branded ourselves that way. And we also have an amazing community supporting us monetarily. All that's going right back into the shows. Like all of our shows are free, except for Velocity, obviously was a ticketed show. But for the most part, our monthly shows are free. Modular on the Spot is free. And we just keep it going with community donations. And it's been amazing. So yeah, I'm going to toss it to Josh to maybe talk about his perspective on everything we do.
Yeah, totally. For all, I think Bradley did a really good job of kind of encapsulating everything we've been doing the last few years and how it's grown. I'll just kind of touch on how I kind of got involved. I was very involved in the hip hop scene up here in Seattle. I was primarily a hip hop producer for a number of years. And then I had a modular, but it was kind of just on the side, just sitting on the desk in my studio, because I didn't really know anyone who did modular. Everyone I knew was either a singer-songwriter or a rapper.
Too, right?
Yeah, right.
Anybody else is, so I'm just gonna keep doing this thing.
No, exactly. And I love being in the hip hop community, but I was feeling really burnt out, and I wasn't quite sure why. But then one summer in 2017, my wife and I went to LA, and it was a Thursday, and there was 2 shows going on that day. There was the Modular on the Spot down by the LA River, and then the Red Bull Music Academy was hosting like some sort of like beat session somewhere downtown. So we went to both. We went to Modular on the Spot, and then we went to the Red Bull thing. And then going both of those things back to back kind of really illuminated for me why I was feeling so burnt out. And it's because, when I went to Modular on the Spot, there was such a good, friendly community vibe. And it's like, it doesn't matter if what you're doing is dope or if it's shit. There's still people engaging in conversation, people getting to know each other, like getting to know like the gear and whatever. And there's a lot of great conversation and community going on. Whereas then when I went to the Red Bull thing, you know, it was all about egos. It was all about being cool. Who here's playing the dopest shit? Who's got their Supreme hoodie? You know, like all that stuff. And then so that's kind of when I realized like maybe the modular scene is more where I belong, because there's that community aspect. But you know, like I said, I didn't know anyone in Seattle doing that, so I was like, shit, I'm gonna start a modular in the spot. And without even knowing Bradley was doing it, I just wanted one to happen in Seattle. So I got back, I hit up Patchworks, the local synth shop, and like Bradley said, they connected us. And then, you know, I had kind of planned on just meeting up with Bradley and picking his brain and then just kind of going on my own and doing my own thing. But throughout our conversation, we kind of came to the realization, like, you know, if the point of this is community, let's band together and like let's do this together and just kind of have one thing rather than compete. And so really for me, it's all about the community. I love the weirdo experimental music, but like I'll throw on a Kanye West record over an Aphex Twin record any day. Like I like musically, I love hip hop more than anything, but the community surrounding the modular scene, I don't know, there's just something about it that really gives me energy and gives me life, whereas the hip hop scene just kind of drained me a little bit.
Well, you kind of relate to that, Josh, too, because obviously I'm rocking a Mod Baps hoodie.
Yeah.
You know, the reason I kind of came up with that term is because I included or started integrating modular synthesis with hip hop, and I was kind of burnt out on the sort of paradigm that is producing hip hop music and boom bap music, and I just wanted to push the envelope. I didn't want to abandon it. Push the envelope and integrate those two. And then when I got a hold of, became a part of the community and synthesis, it was eye-opening just like that. So I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah, you know, it's actually funny you say that, Corey, because your videos are actually huge on what got me into modular. Because I was watching your videos because I was trying to make beats and you know, wanted to see what was up, and then I saw a few of your videos had some modular in it. And I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, that looks awesome. And so that just kind of got the ball rolling. But yeah, even today, I definitely try to have that same mentality. Like, I still love producing hip hop, but I'm going to try to do it as much as I can on the modular. But yeah, anyways, yeah. And then, yeah, we met, like Bradley said, we met Justin along the way, who, you know, he works at Twitch. And so he's our live streaming guru. And he's kind of just helped us step our online presence up and step our game up. And anyway, I'll hand it off to Justin and let him kind of speak on that.
No doubt.
Yeah, thanks guys. Justin, also known as Snowden, if you've maybe seen that name instead. I didn't know anything about modular actually a couple of years ago. As Bradley mentioned, there was a synth petting zoo type meetup that happened maybe once or twice a year, and I was just curious about it. Just kind of always being interested in synthesis and sound design. So I showed up there and I just entered the like paracosm of modular, and I was like, what is going on here? Like all these cables everywhere. This is insane. And they mentioned they were doing monthly shows, and you know, sometimes with meetups, it's like you go and you make introductions, you hang out, but then, you know, either you don't follow up on it or just another event doesn't happen for a while. And so I'd kind of had forgotten about it. And then further down the road, I was listening to the Art Plus Music Plus Technology podcast, which is a great podcast. And on it actually was a guest from another wing of the Seattle community, Ellison Wolf, who was launching the Waveform magazine at the time. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And I didn't realize he was like in Seattle until they talked about it in the podcast. And that kind of spurred me to like look back into that modular stuff I had discovered. And so then when I had showed up to like the first modular nights, it was like Josh and Bradley, and I was like, oh, like this is what they were talking about. Like, this is what they're doing. And then I saw they had like their phone on like a tripod with this like, you know, crappy microphone plugged into it, and they're live streaming. I was just like, oh man, like I could definitely help try to, you know, improve the setup, maybe help out with the recordings. And it really, you know, evolved from there. And then I got to know like all the different groups within Seattle as well. And because we have these monthly shows, it would be like long periods of time to where we might not necessarily see each other face to face. And so being involved with Twitch and the gaming community, I also had used Discord a lot. And especially with even larger communities, I saw an opportunity to kind of essentially have each group have their own channel. And so that way we could continue to collaborate and share resources and stay connected in between these like physical in-person events. Which if anyone's interested in starting a Discord, if you want to DM me, I'm happy to send you an invite. You can kind of see how mine's structured with Discord is very kind of orientated to, in order to scale, especially when communities are very large, they try to incorporate some self-service things inside of Discord. So that way you can really spend time on like the quality interactions with people, and you're not having to do, you know, something maybe really repetitive if someone's joining over and over like every week or every day. So there's like full on wikis that can be kind of built into Discord to help people get started. So I'm definitely happy to help out there. But that's really helped our community. We've had one for the past year, and I think there's like 300 plus people in there now.
Justin,
oh yeah.
New York Modular Society actually started Discord around the same time as you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we sort of cross-pollinated a little bit and started checking out like your welcome channel and all those things and ask actually could we copy you, and I recommend it because the work that you guys did on a lot of your information channels just makes it a hell of a lot easier for new members when they're joining the community. It gives them a little bit of an intro to what's happening. So
yeah,
agreed. Our Discord would be a disorganized mess if it wasn't for Justin's influence. Also, your cat is amazing, by the way.
And I'd like to say thank you, Justin. I posted one song one time on the Seattle Discord to get the vibe a little bit. And I ended up winning an amazing raffle, beautiful shirts, amazing stickers, lots of cool goodies. So I was really...
There we go. New York for taking all our swag.
I want to point out that...
It was amazing.
New Yorker. I'm coming through. Let's give it to her.
One thing I want to point out that's like special about these, I mean, we all know, but like what's so special about these societies is just how freely everybody gives their time to them. And like, I mean, kudos to Justin. Like, I mean, I don't really know anyone that's like is freely giving of his time and knowledge and expertise. We have, you know, a photographer, Kevin Hawley, who comes to every event, takes a bunch of pictures, and then just gives them to us to post and use and give out to the artists to help them promote themselves. I think that's what's so magical about, well, we've all been saying the modular community is a little bit less egocentric and a little bit more helpful. And I mean, that's been my experience too. Like everybody's just really freely giving. And I love how everybody wants to collaborate and lift each other up.
And that's kind of that spirit of community that I love with that. And actually, guys, before we get too far along, I want to also be able to hear the origin story, because even I don't know what the origin story of the SoCal Synth Society is. Let's circle back to the SoCal Synth Society.
This is also Brandy, aka Space Racer. She's one of our founders and my spouse. Hi.
Yeah.
Abe here. Abe, do you want to kind of lead us a little bit, or?
Sure. Let me see where to start. A mutual friend of ours, you know, we've met, me and Travarsi met at another group of friends, you know, another, you know, collaboration of group of people that you know, were doing the same thing kind of, but more like DJing and with hardware. And a friend of ours told Travarsi that, you know, she needed a chord for your Mother 32, right? Or something like that.
I think it was something. I was
yeah.
I don't know.
And a friend, you know, said, hey, why don't you hit up Abe? You know, he has a bunch of, you know, he's doing Eurorack stuff now. So she came over, I gave her one. And, you know, that's when I was building my 15U. She's seen that. And, you know, after that, she suggested, you know, maybe we start another group, you know, just, you know, doing DIY stuff. And, you know, that's, I think where it all started coming together. You know, we made up a name. You know,
I did all the art for it, and started progressing, and wanted to do DIY meetups and soldering sessions and performances, and so yeah, now here we are.
Yeah, I know. I went over to Abe's house because I needed that cable, and I just got into modular, and then I saw, and I was like, yeah, we definitely need to do something, because as I was getting into it, and Brandy, we were like, we would always be talking about it or watching like YouTube videos and things, and even being in the Southern California, like LA area, surrounding area, it was ironic that at least from my experience, like we could not find a group other than modular on the spot. And just like what Ben was saying, like I didn't fit in there. Like I'm a hardware person as well. I'm all about hybrid systems. I use Ableton, I use Bitwig, I use whatever works for me, like, and combining all of those things together. So, and modular on the spot was more of a performance oriented thing, and not so much like get together and teach and things like that. So yeah, like,
and basically I just like to solder things. I just like to build things.
Yeah.
And so we just met up. It was kind of the same thing as one of you guys, like 5 or 6 people at our buddy Justin's house.
No, it was Abe's actually.
No, it was, I meant for the soldering.
Oh yeah, the soldering,
first meetup that we tried to do a little, I brought my grandmother over there. not my actual grandmother. We didn't know what we were doing yet. We just wanted to get some people together, and then we decided we were going to make it more of an educational thing. And we all bought some, kits and an easy, some of us had soldered before, some of us hadn't. And one of our buddies is a little synth guru, so yeah, he's always by our side when we solder, when we build something, and it's just grown from then. We do builds all the time, and then we started doing more local events, and it's been a really organic growth, but we love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what's dope about the SoCal Synth Society in particular, is that what I saw was that it encompassed all of those different things: the soldering, the DIY aspect, the live performance aspect, and the just getting together and having a drink aspect. You know what I mean? Talk about, you know what I mean?
Talking about gear, like especially when, remember we did the Friendsgiving, and it was just like a potluck, and everybody just brought gear, and it didn't matter what it was, Eurorack, it was hardware, it was, like everybody brought a dish, and it was
great.
Yeah.
That's really
and we
good.
have great weather in SoCal, so we can do these events, like outdoors and
like, yeah.
You know what's dope about that thing is, like, listen, it's typically, like, for instance, I think it was Friendsgiving. Here's the typical kind of setup here. You have one person upright, Bryce. He was just getting back into modular after a 4-year hiatus. He literally just went to Perfect Circuit and bought a crap to a whole system, and he box, and he set there, put his system together in an IntelliJoe case. And then meanwhile, there was 2 or 3 people out on the back porch performing a live electronic set. And then you had like Rhythm Droid in the inside, and he was showing me stuff on the Electron Rhythm.
Yep.
And then there was, you had Space Racer plug up the grandmother, and we started messing with that. And so it's like this, and then there's people in the kitchen eating and just kind of fellowshipping for all, and it's just this.
A module swap.
And then there was a module swap, and all this was just kind of happening in one place. It was like a few days or the week before Thanksgiving, and it was that time where we can get together with friends and like-minded people and just, enjoy the stuff that we're really into. So yeah, that was real dope.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, like, if there's anyone out there that's, ever wants to come by and visit and see what we do, you're more than welcome to come. All you guys, I live in Anaheim right here, not too far away from the Anaheim Convention Center, right down the street. So if you're ever here for NAMM, come by and visit.
Yeah.
Shonda's not too far away in Fullerton, so
I know, right?
we're all.
I love
Which dish was the biggest hit at your potluck?
Modular potluck.
I know. Right? Yeah, we try to do the potlucks and just kind of make it more relaxed so people can, because some people come as, that are just getting involved, like have never soldered anything, or they just have a synth, or they're entering in all different aspects, and so it's just nice to have that environment, and that's basically what our foundation is to share knowledge and hang out and just have a safe space, like all inclusive in all aspects, like, and have that opportunity to be able to just answer questions and help someone else that's a little less than you, and then the other person knows something that can share that knowledge. And yeah.
And the other I wanted to, and actually let's go ahead. I wanted to just pose a question that I thought was a good question from the chat, but this would be like for everybody. And although when we planned this, we did an hour and a half, and we started with the hour, said let's do an hour and a half. I'm almost thinking we needed 2 hours. So, but we'll get a chance to do these things again. But the question I'd like to pose is somebody saying, for starting one of these sorts of societies, what elements need to be present for making sure that a society or community thrives? And yeah, that's an open question.
That's energy. It's
Well,
all energy.
I mean,
it's all
positivity. Yeah.
Positivity, follow
through.
Yeah.
And you
Follow
gotta be ready.
through.
You gotta be
That's
ready
the
to do it
thing.
all by yourself. I mean, to a certain degree. I mean, if you have an idea and you want to put together an event, don't let not having other people to help you stop you. Just do
Exactly.
Just do it. Yep.
it. I think this is a perfect example. When you guys called up, and we're like, we're just gonna do it. And like other people would say, let's just wait a month, let's plan it out, let's do that. Man, just jump in.
And that's a good call out, because the fact of the matter is, with what Shonda and I talked about, what Travarsky and I talked about, is let's not spend too much time planning this. And that sounds crazy because I think it came out to be organized, but I think sometimes paralysis gonna do.
Action.
Yep. The thing for us was execute, go. You know what I'm saying? Something.
Partners, you should do it by yourself, but partners are helpful. They can help keep you balanced. John and Ben and I, it's great having 3 people, because then there's never an even vote. There's or even opposition.
Right.
There's always a deciding factor,
and no one wants to make a decision because everyone else wants to be the determining vote. So there's that issue. I deal with that a little bit.
I mean, I think 2 things, like you were saying, just get started. Like we as North Coast Modular Collective are a year into the process of trying to officially become a 501c3. And if we had stopped and waited to figure all that stuff out before we did anything, I don't think we would have done any of our events. Like we would have still been trying to figure out our mission, and like we just started doing stuff and then trying to figure out what we were after the fact. And then kind of popping over to what Travarsky was saying, I think a big factor in us, in what we've been trying to do, even though the word modular is in our name, like for me, at least personally, one of the most incredible things is seeing that person who's like a teenager who comes to one of our meetups at the library and is like, I like to play with apps on my iPad. And then there's like a 60-year-old guy who's like, I've been doing modular since the 70s and I've built out this whole thing and soldered it. And like to have the 2 of them in the same room is pretty incredible, and really speaks to the community that we're trying to build.
Yeah, echoing off Bill, I would say definitely don't be afraid to make mistakes. Try things out. If they don't work, you can always make adjustments. And also, it's really critical to get feedback from your community and just constantly be open to what they have to say. And that's really going to help also build trust with your new community as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Justin. Like, listen to your community. Like one of the reasons we've grown is because we started doing the modular on the spot stuff, but then enough people came to us and were like, hey, we want to play on like our Electron boxes, or we want to bring our guitars or whatever. And so we listened to that feedback, and then we made, the modular night show format, and that kind of blossomed into a whole bunch of other things. Yeah. So listen to the community.
And also, I would say, do for others what you would wish people do for you. So we put out a compilation, trying to promote everybody, in our community, and distinctive, of their level of, accomplishment, professionalism, or any type of musical genre. Just, try to make for your next fellow musician, artist, or whatever, what you wish somebody would have done for you.
totally agree. It's all about just driving new engagements. We have a bi-weekly patch challenge that Dissonant Jason runs point on. To Ben's point, we've done compilations. We certainly enjoy our monthly shows, but any and every opportunity we get to try a new way to engage with our community, that to us is what's paramount, and that's what's most important.
Here in the COVID era, certainly a variety of workshops are a great format, like this. One thing that we're exploring right now is how to do live jam sessions. And there's a bunch of different technologies. I'll paste in the chat some of the ones that we're exploring that allow really low latency audio for a real, responsive feeling during music jamming. I haven't heard of anybody trying to pair it with Ableton Link, but I think that would be another cool way to keep everyone aligned. But yeah, curious if anybody's explored that yet. We're looking into having our first one happen within the next couple weeks.
I started looking into it, Jackstrip, and there was a course on cadence, but I didn't have the patience for it, so I started patching, so.
I do want to say one other thing. With regard to the SoCal and going back to when we were talking about, having being spread out, that is one of the things that we have dealt with our group. On our Facebook group, we tend to have like members of upwards of about 250. And then when the numbers are a little different, depending on our events and the location. So I know like one of the things that we're trying to do is like, we've done a lot of them in more like in the Anaheim, Fullerton area. And we have done a couple in LA, and we were, before all the madness of the COVID, we did have one booked to happen at Perfect Circuit, which we will reschedule once we are able to do so. But I do want to take a mention to Jono, who is also sitting here in the chat with us. And he is a SoCal Synth Society member, but he also lives in San Diego. And he does San Diego modular on the spot. And that's another way. And also the members that help and work with him to make that thrive also have become members of SoCal Synth Society. Jono, do you want to like kind of just say like, just take a moment to kind of talk about, please.
We love you too, man. I mean, like,
thanks for always coming up.
40 years
yes.
spot for sure.
Yeah, thanks, John, for setting this up.
Thank you. So I just want to kind of do a wrap up here. I know we have a lot of stuff in store, like for the rest of the day and going into tomorrow. And I want to thank all of you guys seriously for participating, not only in this talk, but just participating in this whole event. We could not do it without you. And that is the main foundation of what we're actually trying to do here as society, is Synth Society groups. So I'm super happy that it's happening. Like we're all making it work. So
yeah, well, thank you guys so much for organizing.
Thank you, Traversi. Thanks so much. Yeah,
this is amazing.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Huge. Yeah.
And I just want to say to our watchers and our viewers out there that we do have things happening every hour on the hour. If you continue to look at the Southern California Synth Society YouTube page, you're going to see next up we have Davius Beck, and he's going to walk us through the grid with Bitwig. After that, we have live performances discussion. We have sequencing with modular, and patch from scratch with Nasty Nachos, aka Alex, aka Nasty Nachos from DMD. And then Sunday we have a whole other schedule of stuff. So please, thank you for hanging in with us and continue to do so. And we'll see you over at the next link.
Peace.
Take care,
Nice to meet you guys.
Later, everybody.
Everyone.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
I love all y'all.
Bye.
That was rad.
That was sweet.
Yo, we got all hooked